Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. The copyright laws of the United States recognizes a fair use of copyrighted content. Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act states, notwithstanding that provisions of Section 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies of phonorecords or by any other means specified by that section for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. Okay, so I found this. This is in German. Intern Study number 152, 1998. By G. Beckstein, St. Kent, T. Kirkhope, O. Schnatzel, UA. I'll be reading this on my tablet. Scientology in Canada. Stephen A. Kent. Scientology in Canada is remarkably quiet, despite a current civil lawsuit against one of its organizations for $2 million. CDN. Against at least one Scientology school, and apparently ongoing attempts to recruit Indigenous or Native Canadians into the organization's reputed drug rehabilitation and radiation cleansing program. Narconon. Most interesting, however, is the history of Scientology in Canada, because it includes official government investigations of it, one precedent-setting civil court decision against a so-called mission, and a criminal conviction against one of its branches and several of its former members. A. Status in the country. Canada has opportunities for organizations to register as nonprofit entities on both a provincial and a federal level, with each registry providing tax advantages on either provincial or national levels. While the federal government does not release lists of nonprofit organizations, the provinces do, and it appears that various Scientology missions are registered provincially across the country. See Harvey, 1994, Kent, 1990, 398. This status, however, is not a seal of approval for the group's activities, nor does it confirm the power to marry to its so-called ministers. Nevertheless, in 1966, which was a year before Toronto's Scientology organization received nonprofit status, see Kent 1990, 398, a provincially appointed committee began investigating medicine and healing in Ontario. Aspects of that study involve the examination of hypnosis and various groups that use it, as well as a number of sectarian groups including Scientology, Lee, 1970. Scientology had been very hostile about its inclusion in the investigation, and in the committee's final report, it stated that, with no other group in the healing arts did the committee encounter the uncooperative attitude evinced by the Church of Scientology. Committee on the Healing Arts, 2, 1970, 504. It added that, although the Scientologists refer to their organization as a church, and although we will use that designation to describe it, this committee views with skepticism the claims of Scientology to be a Religion. Such claims seem to us somewhat disingenuous, concealing more than they reveal concerning the real nature and beliefs of the organization. I'm going to stop reading the citations. On 2 occasions, the Committee on the Healing Arts felt compelled to issue subpoenas that required Scientologists to produce certain material. After the second subpoena, again they refused to answer questions or to produce the information requested. They said that they refused to answer on the grounds that, 1, they were a religious group, and they always use that. Number 2, they were not engaged in the healing arts. Oh yeah, they're only doing, what is that called, medical malpractice, giving medical advice. The committee, however, is satisfied that the Church of Scientology does in fact attempt to engage in healing and makes explicit claims to heal. Yes. In light of what we now know occurred involving Scientology activities in Toronto later in the 1970s, the committee's warning to Ontario authorities was insightful. We wish to make it very clear, however, that we believe that the Church of Scientology should not be excluded from the proscriptions of the practice of medicine under the Medical Act on the grounds of being a religion, and that the public authorities in Ontario should be aware of the history of this organization in other jurisdictions and should keep the activities of Scientology under constant scrutiny. Within a few years of this warning, members of the Toronto Scientology organization undertook Snow White operations against numerous public agencies around the city. In 1978, the Ontario government commissioned a study of mind development groups, sects, and cults in the province, and Scientology was one of 14 groups examined. When the study issued its findings in 1980, it concluded some groups do indulge in questionable financial practices that involve deceptive recruitment and fraudulent financial dealings. Readers, however, had to guess the specific identities of the groups that the study's author had in mind when stating these and other criticisms, because Hill did not use group names in the body of his text. B. Legal. A number of significant legal decisions have been handed down across the country, but no one knows the full extent of Scientology litigation over the years. For example, between 1968 and 1980, various Scientology organizations had launched over 50 lawsuits without ever having brought one to trial. A clear pattern existed of Scientology not proceeding with the lawsuits that it launched. In reaction of this tactic in 1980, a judge in the province of Alberta became so disturbed at Scientology's delaying tactics in a case that he awarded the defendants whom Scientology had sued their lawyers' costs. In handing down his decision, the judge stated, "The proceedings and the action of the plaintiffs, i.e., 3 Alberta Scientology missions, amounted to a clear abuse of judicial process." I would say it's still going on. More important in the legal arena was a series of criminal convictions against former Scientology spies, along with the Church of Scientology of Toronto. 7 Scientologists were convicted on various charges related to their covert activities against the Ontario Medical Association, the Ontario government, and 3 police forces. The conviction against the organization on 2 criminal counts of breach of trust came in late June 1992, which led to the court imposing a fine of $250,000. These convictions indicated that Scientology's Snow White program, designed to remove negative material about the organization from government offices, was operating in Canada as well as in the United States. One dramatic consequence of the breach of trust investigation was that Scientology and one of its lawyers libeled Crown Attorney Casey Hill, who had worked with police on the case. On September 17, 1984, Scientology held a press conference and announced that it was preparing a motion of contempt of court against Hill. Television and newspapers ran the story locally and nationally. After a judge dismissed the charges, Hill sued for damages for libel. The case resulted in Hill receiving the largest libel award in Canadian history, $1.6 million. Although Canada is not known for high libel payments, in successful defamation cases, a professional lawyer's newspaper concluded that this amount probably represents the third to fourth highest libel award affirmed by the appellate court in North America. In sustaining the verdict, the Court of Appeal decided that 1. The libel was a most serious defamation. 2. The libel was published in circumstances designed to cause the most serious damage to Casey Hill's reputation. That's what they do. And to ensure the wildest circulation possible. 3. The libel caused serious injury to Casey Hill's feelings, and that injury was not alleviated by any public apology. The initial jury found that Scientology was motivated by express malice towards Casey Hill when it libeled him, and that it found that much of its conduct not only aggravated the injury which it caused him, but was calculated to do so. Yeah, what they want to do is pummel you until you cease to be. Moreover, the Court of Appeal of Ontario, which reviewed and upheld the initial decision, noted that Scientology had labeled Hill as an enemy. Canada. It also acknowledged that the jury had sufficient evidence to find malice and egregious conduct on the part of Scientology. While these court cases present solid evidence about Scientology's activity in the country, other evidence is harder to interpret. For example, American author on stock investments, George Cheklikis, is a Scientologist operating out of Clearwater, Florida, who frequently comments on Canadian penny stocks that trade on the notorious Vancouver Stock Exchange and elsewhere. In February 1997, he agreed to pay $162,727 to settle allegations made against him by the American Security Exchange Commission that he failed to adequately disclose payments from more than 150 companies to tout their shares. In addition, the Security Exchange Commission alleged that Chalesky knowingly made false statements about 6 companies, including at least one Canadian company, in his financial publication. Currently, he is a defendant in a Vancouver case in which he fabricated and disseminated a story that a local business reporter and a stock investigator conspired to benefit financially by short-selling stocks that the reporter critically discussed in his newspaper articles. No one ever has related these questionable, if not illegal, activities, however, to his membership in Scientology, nor has anyone proven that Scientology has illegal dealings on the exchange. Scientology runs at least one independent school in Edmonton, Alberta, called the Progressive Academy, that uses L. Ron Hubbard's perspectives and techniques about education, indoctrination. Moreover, Scientology is in the province of Alberta has attempted to recruit Native Indian people into its Narconon program, a program that claims to free people from the residues from both drugs and radiation. Likewise, Canadian dentists have signed up for Scientology-connected practice management or business management programs that are based out of the United States. Of particular interest is a lawsuit filed by an Edmonton, Alberta police officer against a prominent Scientologist along with the Church of Scientology of Alberta. The officer is seeking $1 million for general and aggravated damages and another $1 million for punitive and exemplary damages from court action and comments that the Scientologist made about alleged improper conduct. That should be interesting to look into. Negligence of duty, discriminatory remarks regarding the religion of Scientology, and harassing investigative procedure. These and other activities go on outside of public attention, so very little controversy exists at this moment about them. Unless something dramatic happens involving Scientology in the near future, I predict that the organization will continue to operate in Canada and will not be subject to government sanctions. And then there's a bibliography. So, interesting anyways. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.